The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Cognitive processing encompasses all facets of the human brain that deals with knowledge. The retrieving of information, the retrieving of memory, transforming that information in useful skills. All of this is what the brain is there to do. But cognitive processing also is the consistent way the mind distances itself from pure consciousness. Because out of pure informational and logical retrieval, there is constant data streaming through your entire awareness. And this data is not generally in the field of cognition the way you understand it in form of, processing words and language and information. Because the information that happens precognitively, just by being present in any moment of your life, you have so many sense organs feeling what it's like to be a human. And the mind acts as a filter that then translates raw sensory data into familiar language and symbols. Looking at a tree immediately triggers reference words like tree or wood or leaf. By doing so, you are moving away from the actual processing of the sight. You are putting a mental overlay through words. There's a split second before any thought forms where the experience is actually pure. But we humans have trained to react so quickly with thoughts and speech to what we perceive that this pure state of consciousness always gets pushed away. So much so that it becomes very uncomfortable to be present in that pure state of awareness. Our biological hardware prioritizes survival and categorizes, therefore, its environment in different labels. And it prefers this over deep presence. And underneath this noise of thinking, there's a much richer and deeper form of being. And most human beings have no idea that it is actually accessible to them. There's this bias towards language because we feel identified with language. And in this bias, we also find a sense of identity. If you imagine right now, you could never think again for the rest of your life, would this be relieving to you or would this be scary to you? Probably both, maybe neither. But whatever reaction you have shows you where your mind is leaning towards. If you think, wow, what a relief it would be to never have to think a thought ever again, then this might not actually be that much of a fantasy. The fantasy is the way the ego imagines it, as if your brain is literally empty of all thoughts for the rest of your life. But the tension that you associate with thoughts is not something that needs to be there. Thoughts can move freely without the sense that they are weighing you down or a burden with which to engage with. But in order for you to reach to that state where thoughts don't overwhelm you so much anymore, there's a deep constructive process that must happen. And in this deconstructive process, you likely will have to engage with a lot of deeply uncomfortable and overwhelming sensations. It removes you from the intellect and the desire to label everything and puts you in your somatic body experience. And there is where you find something way deeper than what language processing ever was. Pure being is non-judgmental awareness, and it exists when the inner monologue pauses. Thought and labeling is a mechanism of judgment. It is categorizing things in good and bad, useful and not useful, dangerous and non-dangerous, important and unimportant. And by this state of judgment, you create friction, because instead of letting things be what they are, you are now having to organize and manage them and put them as if it is your responsibility. My ego architecture audit is a structured protocol for this deconstructive process. It deconstructs the mind to stop overthinking and stop ruminating and to stop the insecurity of constantly having to justify yourself to other people. You move through the layers of the mind, through the cognitive structures that have been created over years of training your mind to respond in a certain way to things. And by following the thread of your mind, you reach towards ground being and pure consciousness. As mystical this might sound for the hardcore rationalists in my audience, this process is nothing mysterious. It is documented and part of even very sought after high-level clinical processes. It's depth psychology, really, but if you incorporate more of non-dual philosophy or Buddhist philosophy or panpsychist philosophy into it, then suddenly it seems very much mystical and scary for some. But it just accurately describes how this process often is like for people. There are different layers of this process, but if you go deep enough, it is going to be quite difficult to completely distance yourself from panpsychism or determinism. This philosophical stuff usually comes up because the experience reveals it to you. Constant mental processing, when it's just not necessary in order to protect your sense of self or to protect your sense of ego, is just very exhausting. That's why thinking is exhausting for most people, because it is constantly there to prop something up and defend something that doesn't need defending. It needs understanding. Now, in 2026 digital culture, this endless stream of high-speed information directly into your brain forces you to be consistently in cognitive overdrive mode. And you don't even notice how unnatural it is with how much information you have to deal with every day. And then you start to meditate for a while and it feels agonizing and your mind keeps bombarding you with cognitive processes that you have left unfinished. This is not a healthy way to live. In a healthy human mind, you should be able to turn off the brain and to just exist peacefully. And it is possible for any single person on this planet to do so. What it requires is the will and the training to make this happen. And it requires a low information diet to not be so obsessed with having information to process all the time. Living entirely in your head is an immense psychological cost for both your well-being, but also for your productivity. There's a clear way in which you can recognize that you are over-processing most information you receive in your life, because most stuff you receive is not even relevant to you. Life is being lived instead of thought about. And when you think about yourself more than what do you have to do, or what it is that you are passionate about, or what is the next thing you're excited about, then of course you're going to feel very uncomfortable within yourself, because you're not just being, you are monitoring your own behavior all the time, which creates this uncomfortable feeling of self-consciousness, where, it's not just that you have to manage your thoughts, but your thoughts have to manage your behaviors, and you have to manage your behaviors so that you can manage the perception other people have of you. And then there's this constant struggle to keep this perception alive. And this doesn't end when you're alone. When you're alone, you're imagining how you would be judged by other people. And what if other people would read your thoughts and see how rotten they are? And then even within your own mind, you start to blockade certain aspects and certain shadow parts of your past, stuff that you're not proud of or you're ashamed of. Then you start to bottle it all down and not engage with the real important cognitive process of moving through the stuff, understanding it, feeding through it somatically, and then actually being able to tuck it aside. Integrating this level of awareness in our fast-paced life right now is extremely difficult, because we are running against millions of years of biological survival mechanisms, and our modern environment has hijacked all of our desire to be stimulated and to have always some new information to run after, to eat junk food and just sit at home and smoke weed all the time because it is beneficial for your survival. But this entire structure then kind of forces you to be stuck in your mind because there's nowhere else to go. Everywhere you just see more cognitive processes happening. We are living in an information age where information seems to be the prime focus of our entire society. So much so that art is not art anymore, but content. How well can you simply be in pure consciousness without thinking? I promise it's nice.